patient care setting, you would rank this one higher. Yeah, so in particular, I'm looking at this one that's about providing support about their decision. So you have it ranked 3 here. So how would that one change if it was a patient requesting to start treatment?
Yeah, no. I thought this one was weird. I wouldn't probably hug my patient, but offering them a moment to reflect, like, would that be just so that they calm down? I didn't really know what this meant.
Okay.
I just thought it was weird. But I only put it 2 because I thought it was less bad than 3. Because it's not going to probably help or hurt.
Okay.
Versus it would be very difficult for me to provide support for dropping out of school. But I think you should do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a health care. I think I would kind of lump 3 and 1 together and kind of acknowledging and say, because even if I don't know if I would ever be like, I don't support your decision. Even if I think it's the worst decision in the world, I probably would still tell them I support their decision. But I would push way harder to get them not to do that. Okay. And provide them resources and not just be like, you should do this because I say you should do this, but kind of explain why. Versus this, like, they can always go back to school. I mean, I guess they could always get healthcare later, but they might die before then. Versus, they're not going to die. They might not have the highest quality.
They could die before they go back to college.
But it's not going to be because of dropping out of school.
Okay, so what knowledge or ability do you think this question is testing?
If you can separate your thoughts or your opinions of what's best for the patient, even if you don't agree.
Yeah. Okay, so that goes through all those questions. I just have some general ones now about kind of the experience as a whole. In general, what questions did you feel were easier to answer?
The healthcare ones.
Okay.
Than the personal ones. Because I think we're trained very well to know how to handle different healthcare situations versus, I guess no one really teaches you what you're supposed to do in your personal life. You just kind of figure it out based on, like, your parents and what you grew up with. So I thought the healthcare ones were easier because before pharmacy school I had never had those experiences or had thought about that. So it's easy for me, like, someone tells me this and, like, it makes sense morally, so it's easier to do that versus I'm sure what I would say about cutting in line versus what someone else would say is different based on 25 years of experience versus the healthcare ones, it's only 4 years.
Okay. How did ranking each of the options influence your responses?
What do you mean?
That's a weird question. Did you like ranking them? Let's start there.
I liked ranking 1 and 5. The middle was hard. I wanted to make some a tie.
Okay.
So I thought it was hard not. And, like, some I wanted to leave out because they were so dumb. But I guess that was an easy 5.
Okay. I think you did kind of mention about your approach that you took where sometimes you thought about whether it was in order versus it was doing one or the other. Mm-hmm. Did you find that consistent across items or did it change based on the item that you were working on?
It changed. Okay. Some I would be like, okay, I would do this and then I would do this. But then the ones where I thought, oh, any of these could be, then I had to decide which one was more appropriate versus which one. So yeah, it wasn't consistent. I did different things.
And I mean, I'm just interested about that. Like, do you think there was a certain type of question where you found yourself doing that? Like what the setting was or what the situation was that you wanted a temporal type of response?
I think a lot of the healthcare ones, I kind of went in order.
Okay.
Because you would acknowledge, then you would explain what went wrong, what could happen, leave the room. Especially whatever that one was, I was like, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3.
Yeah.
But then other ones, I was like, yeah, I definitely would never do this. That's less appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah, I think healthcare versus personal setting. Not all of them, but more so.
Okay. In general, what factors do you believe influenced your responses?
I guess mostly like morals and ethics, just like how I handle life personally.
Okay.
Because there was definitely some of them that I was like, the ones I've never had experience with, I know what the right answer is, versus the ones about like undergrad, I kind of knew what the right answer was, versus what I would actually do was harder to separate.
And when you say right answer, what do you mean by that?
Like what you want us to put? Not you for the study, but like in an interview, or because like some interview questions, like common sense, like you should know what without having. I don't know. It's a good question.
So this was one of my follow-up questions. How did knowing that the test might be used for residency selection or for student selection influence response?
I guess I thought back to like my interview for pharmacy school. Obviously, like what I would want as a healthcare person, like someone who's honest, someone who cares. I guess subconsciously I kind of did that. Like when I think of a healthcare provider, they have these qualities. So we assume residency and in school, like they're looking for those qualities. So you answer questions to show those qualities.
Okay.
I think it's easier to do that in situations you haven't experienced.
I'm going to ask you to elaborate on that.
So
it's easier to...
It's easier to answer a question the way I think you want it to be answered for experiences I haven't had yet. Like some of those, like the healthcare ones, I like in my head were like, oh yeah, in this situation I would definitely do this, even though I've never been in that situation. It's easier to say what you would do versus some of the other ones, maybe to other people it would be black and white, but I've had those experiences, so like it was harder to decipher. I don't know. I keep saying the same thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I think it's an interesting insight, which is why I was just kind of probing about it a little bit further. That your experiences have almost affected what you should do versus what you would do. Mm-hmm. Whereas when, and I'm paraphrasing, so please correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you haven't had the experience, you kind of...
It's more black and white, I think.
Of what should be done. Mm-hmm. Because you haven't been influenced by actually being in that experience and maybe knowing what does work or what doesn't work. Mm-hmm. In the experiences you have.
Because I like to think what I did was right. So it's harder, I think. It's hard for people to admit what you did is wrong. So like if you always do X, you want to put that as 1 because like you don't want to admit that you're wrong, I guess. So it makes it more gray versus black and white.
Okay. If I told you all these questions were going to be testing empathy beforehand, would that have impacted your responses?
No, because that's the kind of the approach I took. Because I think I like to think of myself as an empathetic person, and pharmacy school has definitely like ingrained that in us. That, at least for me, I think like empathy is one of the highest. Because even if you don't have the knowledge or you don't know, you can still be empathetic, and that could help the patient just as much. So that's kind of the approach I took.
Regardless?
Yeah.
How well do you think these questions actually test empathy? And you can be honest.
Some of them, I think the personal ones were better because I didn't know. It made me think more versus some of the healthcare ones I could just kind of blow through based on, obviously you don't call the doctor stupid and like... I don't know. Because it's easy to say, like, I wouldn't do that. Or, like, even if you would, you wouldn't. I would hope you wouldn't put that on an interview. Or, like, I don't know. Again, what I think is common sense, not everyone does, so. Maybe.
How would your responses have differed if it was a free response question?
I mean, they would definitely be different because, I don't know. I think... the general theme for most of them, at least the top choices would be the same. But I don't know if I would have come up with 4s and 5s in free response. Yeah. Okay. Some of them maybe, like it's easy to say what not to do. Mm-hmm. Or it might have been easier, like for some of the confusing ones, it's easy to say like maybe the middle would be hard. I don't know. It'd be different. But I think the general theme would be the same.
Okay.
Maybe.